And we're good. Okay, thanks everybody. So I bumped into Melissa 2 weeks ago, and prior to that in January, I'm thinking we keep meeting like this, and I kept badgering you to do a session, and we tried various times, and I introduced you to why this group was an awesome place to talk, and thankfully, eventually the message got through and you've agreed to do this talk. So, and I think it's actually a really inspiring talk because I am a trustee for a charity, and doing charity stuff is really, really hard because nobody pays you, nobody thanks you, and the world is full of problems, and the problems keep coming at you. So I was really inspired that Melissa talked about simple stuff. None of this stuff is really, really complicated. Simple stuff you can do that makes life slightly easier for a charity, that makes the world better. And I think it really, really fits in with our mission as Microsoft MVPs to promote making the world a better place through technology, particularly Microsoft technology. So it tees into a lot of things that I'm really interested in. So like I said, I was really enthusiastic about what she talked about in so many different ways. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Melissa, who will take it from here.
Thank you, Dylan, very much. And yes, it was lovely to meet you at the Manchester group the first time and then seeing you again at the national group. So thank you again for inviting me along. And I really think it is very true what you say there, in that we have these skill sets, some more skilled than others. I'm still quite new in my Microsoft journey, and I've managed to take what I know and make some improvements, and we have more improvements on the way. So without further ado, I will show you all about collaboration for kids. And just bear with me, you're going to see, oh no, you're not going to see my Sailor Moon screensaver, thank goodness. So, Power Platform for Good. Can you guys see my screen? Because your lovely faces have now disappeared.
Yep, looks good.
All right, super. Wonderful. So yeah, Power Platform for Good. First of all, a very quick introduction to me. So my name's Melissa Hale. I'm based in Liverpool in the wonderful north, best place to be. And my 9 to 5, I spend being a Power Platform developer for a consultancy called Mace, who typically build buildings, stadiums, bridges, and then they kind of throw in the digital solutions on the side like a side of fries. But it's very rewarding, and we get to build a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool applications in the big enterprise space. That being said, we're building these things for massive companies with lots of money, and I'm a big believer in helping people in the tech for good space, not just the making money space. So that's where I got involved in collaboration for kids. But before that, and before I actually even came into tech, I was actually a biologist. So I'm going to take you on a very quick journey of how I went from basically dropping out of a PhD to becoming a Power Platform developer. So in 2013, 2018, I was doing my undergrad and master's degrees. I did those in zoology and parasitology. So I used to work with basically bugs of another description that it took host in humans, animals, anything in between. I then went off and I was actually a research technician at Leeds University in the good old north again. I lived up in Yorkshire. I had a great time. And then I was a Starbucks barista because academia was not a good time and getting into a PhD was very difficult. Then I was a research assistant over in Denmark with snakes and spider venom. Then I came back to do a PhD. You can see this is a very squiggly way to get here. And then COVID hit. And basically I was locked in this sort of 4x4 room in a basement somewhere, putting bleach onto parasites to make them hatch, which was about as fun as it sounds. Day in, day out. And I found myself much more excited about, when I'd done all the experiments, putting all the data into a software called R and building all these beautiful graphs and looking at all these data relationships. And I had a long, hard sit and decided maybe science is not for me right now, and maybe I want to explore the more programmy side. So I made a really scary decision and I dropped out of my PhD in late 2022. And I was very lucky that I got onto a software engineering bootcamp in Manchester, again, all around the wonderful north. And I actually ended up getting a job before I finished my bootcamp at a consultancy. I worked with a low-code platform called QuickBase and quickly switched to Power Platform because it's just much better. No offense to QuickBase, still great. So I spent all this time sort of learning these research skills and learning these problem-solving skills that have served me now in my sort of low-code software journey. And you could say that I've traded dealing with one type of bug for another, but you probably shouldn't. That's a really bad joke. I'm sorry. So unfortunately, I can't see you lovely people, but I just want you all to have a mental picture in your head for this question and have your answer. So what proportion of children in the UK do you think are currently at risk of weight-related diseases? Do you think it's 10%? Do you think it's 15%? Or do you think it's more than 20%?
More than 20%.
Yeah, more than 20.
Definitely more than 20%.
People have seen my talk right now, I'm joking. So I'm just going to, before I give you the actual answer, show you some headlines over the last 4 years. And as you can see, these are coming from things like BBC News, BMJ, the NIHR. I think some of them are from sort of The Guardian, Imperial College London. These are very reputable sources, NHS England, Diabetes UK. Oh no, I've just spoiled it. So this is a very pressing issue, and this is something that is, you know, it's not going away. These things are becoming more and more prevalent. So this was a lovely study done by gov.uk in 2017, and what lovely is probably not the right word, and they found that 28% of children between the ages of 2 and 15 were either overweight or obese. And it's thought that that number has actually increased since the pandemic and the cost of living crisis. So it's also been reported that children who are overweight and obese in their younger years are more likely to stay overweight into their adult years, which then compounds the health risks, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And it's really not surprising that that younger generation is suffering when we are moving into this very tech and digital heavy age. And we're also getting less good at our nutrition. We're getting less good at eating whole foods, and, you know, everyone's doing everything in a rush and quickly. And this is not me blaming or saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that that's a product of the environment we're now in 2025. And unfortunately, this has got a really bad knock-on effect of our health. One study actually found that I think it made up to 52% of the average Briton's diet that we were having non-whole foods. And I'll come to that in a second. And then this was a very interesting paper written by the British Medical Journal. If anybody's into their research papers, which obviously with my science background, I still really like them. This was written in 2024, I believe. The link is on the bottom if anybody wants it. I can send this out afterwards. Just send me a message on LinkedIn. But this study basically looked at the correlation between eating ultra-processed foods, which I'll give you the definition of that in a minute, but eating non-whole foods and what it did to your health. So to make this graph really short, if the number is lower, it's more convincing, and if the color is darker, it's more convincing. So I've highlighted a few of them, but basically higher percentages of ultra-processed foods caused respiratory illness, it caused heart illnesses, abdominal obesity, type 2 diabetes, and it also had significant impact on mental health conditions, which we are also seeing in the younger generation, a really big spike in mental health illnesses. So this greater exposure is having impact, and it is actually quantifiable. It's not just me or other people saying, oh, ultra-processed food is bad, because that's not the story either. So let's quickly decide what an ultra-processed food is. I've put up a really simple table here for you to have a look at, and we've got 4 categories, and this was actually called the NOVA classification, made by some very, very smart people over in Brazil. And it's a framework for grouping edible substances based on the extent they are processed. So you've got your unprocessed and minimally processed foods, things like fruit, vegetable, eggs, milk, and meat, all the way up to your ultra-processed foods. So basically think of like your favorite takeaways, think of, you know, your cakes, your crisps, that kind of stuff. Those are the ultra-processed foods. And again, this is not a talk to shame anybody who eats those things. I just had a ready meal for lunch. Like they're not the enemy. It's just the quantity in which we're eating them mixed with our lifestyles. And the younger you are, the more of a risk you are at. So the point of this is not to demonize a food. I want to make that really clear, because I think sometimes I give this talk and people think I'm telling them not to eat the food they want to eat. I'm just saying we need to eat it responsibly and understand the risks that come with it, especially if we're not having the healthiest lifestyle alongside it. So what's the whole point of this? Why am I talking about this? Well, about 8 months ago, I got approached by a charity called Collaboration for Kids, and their founder, Heidi Glover, she saw this massive problem and this massive increase in health risks in children. So she founded Collaboration for Kids, and their whole aim is to be an ambitious, I can't speak today. Their whole thing is about being an ambitious and evidence-based project of voluntary collaboration, and that is involving the parents, the carers, educational workers, healthcare professionals, and researchers. So this is a multi-point project. This isn't just a bunch of researchers. This isn't just a bunch of parents or healthcare workers. It's everybody coming together and using their knowledge. And their goal is to help children and families turn away from over-reliance on ultra-processed food and help with educational nutrition and helping give access to exercise programs and places where kids can go and be active in areas where maybe it's not as easy. And this is, helping them in all aspects. So about 8 months ago, I actually got approached by somebody on LinkedIn, and this lovely lady named Jenny messaged me asking for help with their SharePoint. They wanted to have this collaborative space where all of the different teams and all the different members could post and speak and work together. With it being a charity organisation, there isn't much of that at the moment, and it's very remote based. There's people all over the country. There's people in other countries even. I believe Heidi herself actually is sometimes based out of Sweden. So, they really needed this digital space to come into and work from. So, she pitched me this wonderful charity. I went away and looked at it, and I was like, yes, all in. So within a week, I was signed up, and I was then their SharePoint specialist. So the problems that were presented to me when I joined, problems is a strong word, but I met my manager, Rick, and he walked me through what they had, which was no SharePoint whatsoever. They had Microsoft Teams, and that was it. So we sat down and we did this requirement gathering exercise where we said, okay, what are the goals? What do we want to do to get there? And how do we do it? And the first 3 things that we identified we wanted to work on was the lack of collaborative digital space, which obviously would be addressed by a SharePoint, the burden of administrative processes, so things like when new joiners join, having to manually send emails, when people send help requests to individual people and not having a log of it, not having a knowledge base, and also not having any kind of document management system in place. And this one just goes out to anybody who works in corporate 9 to 5. If you've ever been waiting for someone to get back to you with like a really crucial business email or, a roadblock somewhere in your project, imagine if you're waiting for that person and they only log on every other Tuesday for an hour. The projects are going to come to a standstill and it's going to be a nightmare. Or imagine that somebody's taken out a document and you can't edit it now. It's like the Wild West. And that's just what they were working with before. So we've sat down and we've made plans to move forward with that. So the goal was basically to transform the whole digital space that CFK are using. So I present to you the SharePoint, which we will look at in a minute, but this is just a screenshot of the SharePoint. So we built this out as a hub site, and the eagle-eyed of you might notice on that top ribbon there, we've actually got 3 charities. So just to make it very simple, Collaborative Health Community, CHC, is the umbrella charity, and underneath that comes CFK and FAS. So there's Collaboration for Kids and Food Addiction Solutions, which are 2 separate charities that sit within. So just to make all those initialisms really clear, because it took me a little while to get around it as well. But I set this up as a hub site so that it would be easier to manage all the development in one central location. And basically everything we do in the CHC hub will get carried over to the CFK intranet and the FAS intranet, because obviously all these places have their own individual teams and projects. And it will also allow us to make specific permission groups through SharePoint down to a very granular level, which I really like about hub sites. So if I can, I'm gonna hopefully show you guys. If someone could just tell me that you can actually see my screen, or is it still the power presentation?
Yes, yep.
All right, super. It's all right. Can't see anyone's faces on the chat. It's very strange. It's like I'm just talking to myself. Okay, so this is our lovely intranet that we have been working on for the last 6 to 8 months. And as you can see, we're still in the very early stages. We're still waiting for content from a lot of departments. This is one of the challenges of working with a charity, is not everyone has a lot of time to dedicate. So you really have to jump on when you can get people. So we've managed to build out the general structure to the founder's specification, which was she wanted a homepage, she wanted a notice board where we could have kind of like newsletter archives, we could have recent news, we could have a filter for upcoming events, all this good stuff. So if you fancied sitting and having your coffee one morning and reading through a year's worth of CFK newsletters, this is where you'd go. But the really exciting thing that we are using now is the team workspaces, which are restricted. So I can't actually show you them, but effectively what this does is if you click on one of these links, it takes you through to that individual team's team site where they have all their documents, all their recently opened things. They can see everybody on their team, and it's that collaborative space they wanted. So it's taking Microsoft Teams and just kind of giving it a little extra something. Kind of like if anyone's ever used a virtual workspace, which I used to do a lot in university because I was really bad at studying on my own. I needed to go into like a virtual workspace to feel like I was productive. So they've really enjoyed that and they've had a good time with that. Then we've got sort of all our policies, our org chart, goals and strategies, things that, again, people who are maybe new to the organization, this is a really good place for them to start. Something we're building out now is the project and interventions tables, templates even, and this is where people can go and learn about the individual projects and interventions that are happening with the charity at the moment. These are our individual department pages, and then we've also got our resources, and we've got our Get Help section, which, yeah, I will come back to that in a second. So I'm going to close that out. So that's the whistle-stop tour of the CHC or the CFK intranet. So I've got our dedicated workspaces, our notice board, departmental pages, and the help section, which will look a little bit more in depth. This is more just for anybody who, like me, was very slow on the uptake here, that you didn't need to use PowerShell and PnP anymore to set your site colors. So I believe in April 2024, Microsoft introduced SharePoint Brand Center. So you can actually just go into the top right, change the look section, go to site branding, and you can just make a nice theme rather than having to go to various tutorial websites and try and figure out how to make an accessible color palette. So that's more of just a trick for anyone who missed it like me. It's also great because it keeps everything cohesive, like I said about the hub site settings. Another sort of quick tip that I wish I'd known sooner was that we can make SharePoint lists into an FAQ and make them, much more engaging for the users. They're searchable as well. So if someone comes into the FAQ with a specific question or a specific keyword like SharePoint or profile pictures or email, they come in here, they search it, and they can very quickly find their answer, which again, with this charity setting is so important because if you need to go to, there's 3 of us on the IT team, myself, my manager, my manager, Tim and Reese. And let's say none of us are available on that day when you have a question, it's holding your work up. If you can go here and try and find your question first, that's going to make your life a lot easier. And then we're going to talk
are you going to tell us a bit more about the way you did that FAQ?
Oh, yes, I can. So I can actually show you.
If you can, that'd be great. I'd be interested to know, how did you do the formatting? Was it an out of the box or did you build it? And also, what processes have you put around the FAQ to make sure that the right questions go in and the approved answers come out?
I'll answer your last question first, so I'll go reverse chronological. So at the moment, we're basically doing sort of a knowledge gathering from all the department heads. So I've asked everybody, go away and think of the top 5 things people ask you on a regular basis. What are the 5 questions you constantly get in your email box? And give them to me with your answers. And then we're going to build them out here. So I'm waiting for a lot of those responses at the moment. Again, nothing moves with speed when everyone's sort of just giving the time they've got. I also apologize. I recently changed the theme, so the colors are now not very accessible. This will be fixed tomorrow. As far as the searching, so if the specific question was about email or Microsoft profile pictures or attaching to an email, they would search in this list. So let's say the keyword was SharePoint. This will just give me the results with SharePoint. The goal is also to have some views brought in. So, for example, we can have a view based on the SharePoint itself. We can have a view based on policies, a view based on maybe interacting with the public. So when we've got those project interventions out at schools or out at community centres, things like that. So bringing in views. This is where I have to remember how I did this because it's been a while. I think it was format current. Yes. Okay. So we used JSON for this, and yep. I'm not going to take credit for this. There was a gentleman I used to work with at a previous role who introduced me to this. I believe his name is Dougie Wood. Absolute SharePoint wizard. Please go look him up on YouTube. Absolute genius. He knows far more than I do. But he introduced me to this, and basically you can get the schema from, I think it was somewhere along there. It was a GitHub. But anyway, you're able to change the background colors, make them fit with the theme. You were able to change, so you've got these little cues here, which I believe was a little further down. But yeah, there was a lot of learning curve here. But basically, JSON, Substack, asking people on LinkedIn, and a lot of Googling on how to do this. But
So JSON is not good for my mental health. I hate it. But
I have to use
Copilot,
JSON validators constantly.
yeah, but Copilot does a good job of generating JSON. So that's
I
how I
will
do
say,
it these
yes.
days. I smile a lot more as a consequence.
As long as it's only a little bit of JSON, I've noticed, because I had something actually in my 9 to 5 today where I could not get this little piece of JSON expression to work. So yeah, a little bit of code. Copilot's wonderful. As soon as I give it more than like 2 things to do, it starts getting a little confused. But maybe that's because I have freemium Copilot, not the Copilot license. So anyone with Copilot license, please tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I definitely the GitHub Copilot. It'd be interesting to see. I don't think I've ever done it with SharePoint list formatting, but it's pretty good. So it'd be interesting to see. We'll have to give it a go. We'll do it at the end. We'll have a go at the end.
Yeah, let us know your results afterwards. So sorry, oh no, let's close my presentation. That was silly of me. So I had this problem at the user groups as well. So actually, no, Dylan, you did make it to my talk, did you? So you can see this for the first time, me having to scroll back through. So yes,
we've all done it.
I even made a note to myself before this presentation to not do this. So here we are. I don't learn. Anyway, yes. So FAQ formatting, we really think this is going to help. Again, the whole goal of this is to save people time and make sure we're not encountering blockers where we don't want to, because we want the volunteers and the people out there doing the good things to be out there doing the good things, not, you know, being frustrated with technology like most of the time. So that is definitely great. And I think there's a fantastic resource in the chat if anyone's interested in doing that in their SharePoints. Okay, this is a very new, exciting part of this talk. So as of this week, we now have a demo of the document management system. Again, we are adding more metadata and waiting for people to kind of give some input and directions here. But the idea is that each of the different departments will be responsible for their own document library, which is obviously hosted inside the main document library of SharePoint. A couple of reasons why we're excited about this is, like I said, the current system is the Wild West, and trying to find anything is a bit of a mess, and people are constantly losing documents, saving over templates, things like that. So we really want to bring some order and structure into it to make people's life easier. So we're aiming for an efficient document management system where, so say I'm from admin in CHC, I'll go into the admin folder and then there'll be subfolders and I'll find what I need, whether it's a policy or a template, or maybe it's a minutes of a previous meeting. Again, the department tagging is just to make it easier to find said documents. Security classification was actually something I came across at a talk in January in Estonia. Very, very smart guy talking about purview and how we can use the value tags and security classifications to make sure that, for example, if we do have Copilot plugged into the SharePoint, it's not using those documents if it's not allowed to use those documents. And somebody with more knowledge about purview, please correct me if I'm wrong. But that's a really good feature that I think is a good thing to implement in our document management systems. No one's correcting me, so I'll take it as I'm right. But yes, so improving our security and compliance by tagging documents with either private, public, or classified, and then integrating that in our admin center. Another thing we've added at the moment is an owner category, which again is empty at the moment because we need some people to take ownership of these folders. Which trying to get people to do can be a little bit challenging. So this metadata basically provides accountability of who's in charge of that folder. So if someone has a question about it or something needs to be added, once we eventually add approval processes, documents and reviews, that's the person who the approval will go to. And also who to contact if you have a question about anything in those folders. As the nonprofit grows and managing documents becomes more complex, not that it's not already, it's hoped that by adding more metadata and adding more tagging, we can, keep an eye on what's where and if we need it, when it was added, when it was modified, version control, all very important things that we don't currently have. Okay, but again, this literally has only been made this week. This is the demo, so we're very excited for this to grow and get better. So any document management experts, please send me your tips and tricks. Okay, Next, we're going to move on to the tutorial library, which, as one of the members of the IT team, is my pride and joy so far on this website, and it was where I got to use Power Automate. As Dylan mentioned earlier, it's not the most complex solution, but it works. So if we head out to the site and you go to get help. So I'm a volunteer at the charity and I have a question. I have a couple of options. I can go to the FAQs, which you guys have just seen, and I can see if my question is there and if it's answered. If it's not, I can head over to the how-to videos, which is more of a if you need to do something and it's complicated or if you're not sure. So adding an attachment to an email or updating your Microsoft 365 profile picture. I'm trying to think of other examples off the top of my head. If you wanted to create your own page, for example, and you had those permissions, this is where you would go and get a, show you how to do it, because sometimes it's easier to watch a video than read 3 or 4 pages of documentation with screenshots. And this has been the approach that they have liked the most so far, and we're currently getting more requests for these videos that we just haven't had time to film yet. And then the Power Automate. So you've gone to those 2 places, you still have a problem and you don't have an answer. So you would head over to submit a help request. This leverages a Microsoft form, which I would then put my name in. So I'm going to say my name's Melissa. I'm going to say that my email is, should put my work email in there. And then I can tag what my issue is regarding. So is it a technical difficulty? Is it a new feature request, which we're using at the moment for people to actually log what they want added to the site? So I'm going to say it's a new feature request. They can also tag it with urgency. I'm going to say it's low, and I'm just going to say I have a problem. And then I would submit it. So that Microsoft form then gets submitted into a library in the back end, which I will show you guys, which is full of test data at the moment, so please ignore it. Back to help requests. There we go. So that's the one I've just sent. So new feature request, that's the email I just put in. I have a problem, low, open. So the reason that we were quite excited about this at the IT team is because we get a lot of emails on a regular basis asking, where can I find this folder? Where can I do this? Where's this on the site? How do I do this with my computer? General IT questions. So the idea is that we can consolidate all those pain points and we can actually see where those problems are. And that will, one, tell us, okay, where do we maybe need to get some training or some knowledge bases? Do we need to do something on a wider scale to stop getting these questions? How do we make it more efficient for everybody? Also, sorry, I skipped over. This will also send an email to it will actually send it to the shared mailbox that all of the IT team are in. And then whoever sees it first will approve it. And then that effectively assigns it to you. So then we know who has ownership of that question, and then we can get back to the person who sent it via the email that they provided us, or we can just look at their name on the Teams chat. And then when we've resolved it, we can also say when it resolved by, and then we can also look, okay, well, how long was it taking us to resolve tickets? And this is probably a leftover product of one of my first jobs where I was doing a lot of support desk work, but it does really help, and it helps streamline features when we bring them in as well. So that is there. And then I'm going to show you the Power Automate. As Dylan mentioned, it's a very simple solution, and I did actually get a very good point at the user group of how I could make it better. I just haven't had a chance yet. But here is our really simple IT help request, which we've put in a try catch finally. Make sure we are following best practices. So it gets submitted. It creates an item in that SharePoint list, composes the help desk email with all that information, starts that approval so that somebody can basically take assignment for it. And then it updates the item to update the status as in progress. And then obviously when we go in and we complete it, we can manually update that to approved. If that doesn't work, we have also got some error handling. So very simple, grab the error message that might come from this scope, which is the try scope, configure that as a run after. So this will only do its actions if this fails or is skipped. And then same thing here. If this runs, then the email will run, which basically says your flow has failed, error code, please go review at your earliest convenience. And that tells me and the rest of the IT team something's gone wrong, we need to go fix it. Any questions about that?
There's Jeff has got a question.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, we'll help you out because you can't see.
I can't. Yeah, you guys have just disappeared. I said I could just be talking in my room like a lunatic. Jeff, what's your question?
Yeah, hi, Melissa. A couple of questions actually. First of all, nice presentation. Thank you for letting us into your solution. I think the first one is, I'm not sure what the constraints are. I'm just wondering why your choice of solution is a SharePoint list instead of a Power App, and why you're having to send technicians to the list. Yeah, that's the first question. And then second question, I mean, you don't expect, I tried to run away from like the approval action anyway because of the timeout period set. Is there any action in place for that if that happens? And yeah, just again, why not Power Apps? I think that's the major question. Why not Power Apps? Is there like a license constraint? Yeah, I think yeah, it's just that's the question.
No, really good question. So this solution originally, we started building this about 3-4 months ago, the Power Automate solution. At the time, it was a case of, okay, we need something quick and we need it now. And I think the goal is we're hoping to transform it into a Power app to then embed on the site. We actually have a few Power apps that we want to build, but we've kind of had to rein in production at the moment because we need to actually get the site up and running to all the users. So at the moment, only the department heads have access to it. So the focus is get the SharePoint out, get all the content on, and then we're going to hopefully upgrade it. But I 100% agree with you. It's a much nicer UI and a UX on a user side to actually have a Power App embedded rather than, oh, you've got to go do a form and you've got to go into the SharePoint list and you've got to do this and you have to look in all these different places for your information. But no, 100% agree with you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. All good? Been through that. Yeah, and that is our sort of very simple, very trimmed down, how do I phrase it? Solution. Thank you, that's the word you used. That's our solution at the moment. So there's still a lot of work to do here. There's a lot of things we're really excited about. So our next steps are...
Dylan's got his hand up as well. Sorry.
Sorry, Dylan.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. You carry on. I was just going to ask you about licensing because that came up with the question with Power Apps. That would have a licensing impact, wouldn't it? So it might be worth talking what you know about licensing and just in a non-profit.
And I will also ask you to help me if I'm wrong on this one, Dylan, because I'm new in the non-profit space. But my understanding is, as a charity, we have, I think, 10 premium or business licenses. So that gives us access to Power Automate, Power Apps. I'm not sure if we have anything else. We definitely do have access to Power Automate and Power Apps, but I believe in terms of having that front facing is more complex because you obviously need to pay for licensing for the people using the apps. Even within the charity scope, we only have 10 of those licenses, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say that's my understanding is you get 10 free licenses in Power Automate Premium, which obviously, sorry, Power Apps Premium. They keep changing the name of these things, which is fine if you're very, very small, but obviously you start increasing your footprint. And as everybody needs the Office apps anyway, you may as well go for 365 and 365 because at least it's included within the licenses you're going to buy anyway.
Yes, so we have 100 basic licenses, I believe, is the standard for non-profits. You get 100 sort of Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all that good stuff, and Outlook and things like that. And then for the more heavy apps, it's only 10 licenses, so only 10 people will be able to use it. So we could build this wonderful app, but then who gets access to it, if that makes sense, because you need to have a license to be able to use it.
You can get non-profit pricing as well, can't you? So you can get your tenant sort of added into a non-profit, and then you can go and get massive discounts. Actually, I think
Yeah.
something like the Power App Premium. Is it? I want to say it's like a couple of quid.
Yeah, about £3, I think.
Yeah.
I've just
but-
posted a link to the
Yeah.
Microsoft stuff for non-profits, which is interesting because I am literally this week starting a non-profit organisation.
The only gotcha is you get free quote unquote office licenses, but it's only for the web version. If you want to
Yes.
have the downloadable apps part, the equivalent of E3, which you have to pay for that. It's only about £3, but it does mount up if
Is that
once
per
you start
user?
scaling that out.
£3 per user.
Yeah, per user. Yeah. So unfortunately, there is a price per user. It's an incredibly good discount compared to
100%.
commercial. But if you're a charity, then it all counts. So keeping it online makes sense. And of course, your solution, because it's all SharePoint Online, would have zero footprint for licensing. But if you want to be able to give people their copy of Word and things, then you've got to pay for it.
No, 100%. But yes, that's definitely something we can look at. But at the moment, I know that we have 10 premium licenses. Forgive the naming convention being wrong, but for people who can use Power Automate, Power Apps. So that's why we've kind of defaulted to the more basic solutions as well, I think, until we can figure out the licensing and the return on, not return on investment, but how valuable that would be versus where the charity money would go elsewhere. But yeah, really good question. Thank you. Yes, so super simple solution for the things we've done so far, but we are hoping to build out. And like I said, we really want to get the SharePoint up and running. Oh, Damone?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hi, it's Damon. Okay, so let's focus on the case of, let's say, you guys are expanding into Power Apps and all of that. How will it work with the data source that you guys are going to be choosing? Would you guys be using a SharePoint list, or will you guys be going with Dataverse? Because I know with Dataverse it's also has to do with licensing, but I also know that you're also using SharePoint. So, I mean, a lot of people say that you shouldn't utilize SharePoint list connect to your Power Apps, but I mean, it is free, not free, but once you have a SharePoint, then usually you can utilize it. So would it be ideal to use the SharePoint list? Because I mean, you already built the FAQ in the SharePoint list, and all of the stuff you can just chuck in the SharePoint list, and people can also have access to the SharePoint list. What do you think about that?
Yes, so this is a hot topic that comes up a lot, actually, and I actually asked a lot of much smarter people than myself at the last conference I went to, you know, what are the pros and cons of SharePoint versus Dataverse? And I think the biggest con, or one of the biggest cons with SharePoint, is it's not built to handle mass amounts of data. So I think the numbers coming to my head are either 1,000 or 5,000 is the limit.
2,000.
2,000. I was completely wrong. Thank you. So there's the limitation on the number of rows we can actually have and be retrievable at its Power Automate. That's 5,000. But yeah, we have that limitation in terms of how much data we can actually store. For these processes, I don't think that's a massive problem, because if we get to the point where we have 2,000 IT requests, I would hope we're quite far down the line at that point. But the big con for Dataverse is the cost. So that does not come included. And again, Dylan, please correct me. That does not come included with the charity or the non-profit licensing, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like it also depends on the user experience you want to give. So, you know, if you've got SharePoint and delegable functions, which means you can, you know, somebody can ask for something in the Power App, and the Power App can convert it into a search query which SharePoint can manage, then you can go higher than that. But often I think it's the search experience which generally breaks these things, where you want to do like, I want to search starts with or something. That's where SharePoint. So yeah, I totally agree with you. If you've got low volumes of items, then you're all right. But
it's not ideal.
No, and you know what happens, don't you? You start using something. It's like, oh yeah, no, we're only going to have like 100 items, and then like 6 months later, it's like, oh, actually, we've just whacked in 30,000 items into thing, and yeah, so yeah, it's But like, yeah, it's a good place to start. At least then as well, if it's something which really takes off and has got value to the business, and it's really helping, maybe save money in other ways, then actually you can say, well, yeah, look at what it's doing, and maybe we should convert this to Dataverse, because we've built the adoption of it. So yeah, place to start.
No, I 100% agree. And yes, that would be my goal. Best practice would be to use Dataverse as the data source, but we're under the constraints and the limitations we are, so we've kind of made it work. And at this low volume and this low use, I don't foresee any massive problems. I am prepared to regret saying that in a few months' time, but for now, we're going to power forward with SharePoint. But if I was to design it with like unlimited restrictions, I would definitely use Dataverse. Does that answer your question, Damon? I see a thumb. I'm going to assume that's a yes.
Yes, your cost benefits are slightly different with a charity because you pay for licenses, but you don't pay for labor. Whereas in a commercial organization, you have to pay for the developer time. So you might be tempted to go for something which is more productive for developers, but more expensive as a license.
Yeah, and yeah, I think you're looking at completely different sums there, like you said, in the return on investment. And also you're looking at scalability, because if you build a solution for somebody on SharePoint and then 6 months down the line, you put those 30,000 records in, you're going to have to rebuild the entire solution, and the client's going to expect you do that on your dime because you sold them that solution. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Oh, okay. Sorry, I realize I've just been on a blank page forever. So next steps then. So that's kind of where we're at now, what we're moving towards. And, we've got a lot of conversations with a lot of different departments that are hopefully moving towards more usage of the site in the next month or so. On top of that, we are populating department pages with content. So that's our big one. We're also looking at a custom SPFX to bring in the Just Giving page as well. Building out that document management system, like I said, as of this week, we've just started to build a demo out and make sure that we're recording the info that we need. And we're also looking at creating an interactive Power App. So this one is the idea being that we'll have it on a tablet and it will get taken into schools or the programs with the children and the families, and they'll have an interactive experience. So sort of using the tech for the educational side as well. So we're very excited about that. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at with Collaboration for Kids, collaboration with health community. And the one thing I would really love for anyone to take away from this is I am by no means a Power Platform expert. Like I said, I came into this less than 3 years ago. I've learned so much in the roles I've had, and honestly, I've learned a lot in the charity role I've had because I haven't had a direct manager for the work I've been doing. So I've had to go and figure out the answers that I don't even know I need to ask. And it's been a really rewarding experience. But if someone like me with a couple of years of experience can come in and actually deliver something of value to a charity that has saved them time and, even made them a bit more motivated to maybe do some work because they like using the interface we've created for them, then anyone can do it. And I really encourage that anyone who can should, because we have these skills, and like Dylan and Simon said earlier, the whole point of being here and being part of this community is we want to make the world a better place and we want to do good. So I really encourage anybody with these skills, or even it doesn't have to be tech skills. I know obviously we're in a tech call, but maybe you have baking skills, maybe you have crafty skills, and you can go and help out at your local fundraisers. Really look for somewhere where you can fill a gap and make things better. So find a challenge and consider how a tech tool or otherwise can help address them, and ask yourself, would that, would that bring me joy, and would that bring somebody else joy? So yeah, I really, really recommend it, even if you don't have the best tech skills like myself. And that's pretty much it from me, guys. So I want to thank you again for letting me come and ramble about my passion project and listen to me talk about CFK and probably scare everybody away from having pizza and Pepsi, which is what I'm going to do after this call. So again, ultra-processed food is not the enemy. It's all about balance, and it's all about making, healthy choices in the long run kind of thing. But if you guys do want to find me on LinkedIn, that's my profile. That's what I look like. And if you have any questions, or you want any resources, or you want to know anything more about the charity, that is my email address at the bottom. Please feel free to send me an email as well.
Cool. Very good. Thank you, Melissa. That was excellent. I've been
Thank you, Melissa.
poking stuff out on social media and making notes myself, because I also am not terribly technical, as my colleagues will attest, but I come through the physics route into SharePoint and beyond. So there you go. All the best people are scientists, as we know.
That's really good. No, thank you. That's really awesome to see and see what you've been up to. Have you got any sort of thoughts around? I mean, do any of the charity, are they workers, sort of frontline workers? Are they out on the field doing stuff? Is there any thoughts around that kind of side of it, being able to maybe roll out the SharePoint platform via Teams onto people's mobile devices so they've got access to these tools when they're out and about? Is that a use case which might be there or not?
I think it could possibly be a use case. I think for the most part, we're working with a lot of volunteers who are retired, maybe a little bit less experienced with tech at the moment. So trying to get them to have, and again, I'm only talking about very vague, very vague generalization. But yes, I think the majority of people are only really using it on their laptops. They're, doing a couple hours a week when they have the spare time, and it's, I wouldn't want to be the person to push that, like, hey, you should get Teams on your phone, you should get SharePoint on your phone. But maybe, who knows, maybe there'll be a really big adoption in it, especially when we get some more sort of interactive elements, like some kind of power app that people can take out to the schools. We just kind of need that buy-in first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's got to be a reason for it, isn't there? And if there's a strong enough reason, then it makes sense. Yeah, cool. Okay.
What's your user adoption been like? What are the sort of the wins and the challenges you've had around user adoption with these interesting changes that you've been making?
Very, very open and very honest. There's definitely been some resistance. I've been at a couple of companies, obviously not with the charity as well, but people don't like change. We are creatures of habit. We like comfy. We like what we know, right? So I've noticed whenever something new or shiny comes in, there'll always be the people who are like, yeah, but what's wrong with what we do now? And I saw a fantastic talk actually at the National User Group a few weeks ago. I've forgotten the gentleman's name, but he worked at National Rail. And he said something very poignant, that we can't force tech on anybody. The best thing we can do is explain why we're doing what we're doing, be really curious, ask a lot of questions, and sort of take them on the journey with us. So kind of listen out for something they didn't like about it, or something that they, wish wasn't that way, and then say, okay, what don't you like about it? Why don't you like it? How could we make that, more streamlined? How could we fit that better to your role? And then people, once they feel like they have some agency in it, they start to get a bit more excited, because it's not being forced on them. It's this like roller coaster they get to get on as well.
So what have been the things that have surprised you the most, either about the things that people were willing to grab and run with and those that they were actually resistant to?
I'm not sure if it was a surprise as such, but I think the biggest, maybe it was a surprise. I think the biggest shock for me was, obviously I built this skeleton out. We've got a SharePoint sort of ready to go, but it's empty. There's no content in it. And starting to reach out to people and be like, hey, can you tell me what you want on your page? And either being, I don't want to say ignored, that's not the right word, but people are very busy. Either sort of people don't think it's important, or someone doesn't want to make that decision, or they're not as, I think a lot of people are scared about the creativity side. So I'm not a creative person at all. Maths and science was my thing. If you asked me to try and put something together, this was a Canva template I took. If you'd asked me to design it, I might have cried. So that creativity element, I think, scares a lot of people off from it, which I didn't really think about, because I'm surrounded in my real life by a lot of creative people. A lot of my friends are sort of like web designers and creative graphic designers, things like that. So seeing people be very like, oh no, I don't want to be in charge of designing it, was a little bit surprising. And sort of people not wanting to, I think I used the word champions when I first brought it to the team, and I was like, okay, I need every department to have a SharePoint champion. And I think I thought that was a much cooler sounding role than anybody else did. I was like, oh yeah, SharePoint champions. Nobody wanted to be a SharePoint champion at first. So really try to convince them, like, yeah, but you're gonna have, you're gonna have say over what's on your page, and you're gonna get to say, hey, I made that at the end of this kind of thing. So yeah, just coaxing people out a little bit, maybe being a little bit bullheaded sometimes, and sort of just not harassing people, but sort of just keep going to them and go, hey, I still haven't had your form for this page. Oh, you haven't given me your pictures yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Persistence. Let's go with that. Takes a lot of persistence.
Yeah. I guess a lot of it's sort of the unknown, isn't it? They're worried about just that fear, isn't it, of making a mistake possibly, or putting, getting told off. I don't know.
Is it blank page syndrome or something it's called, when you're faced with a blank page and you're paralyzed?
Yeah. No, really interesting. Simon and I have worked on a project recently where we've sort of rolled out SharePoint Online, and we recorded a lot of video to help kind of help people, just short videos, just to help people kind of be able to on their own time get up to speed or learn something, which seems to be helping that organisation. I don't know if that's something which might help yours, this solution. Yeah, giving those different ways for people to be able to learn something.
There was a really nice piece of a study out that I saw last week. It was last week, related to Copilot and Copilot adoption, but it was a Microsoft study because we're in the Microsoft place and we read Microsoft stuff. But it talked about, to drive Copilot adoption, the critical point was when people were finding it was saving them 11 minutes a day, and they carried on using it for 11 weeks, I think it was. So they called it the 11 by 11 study. So people suddenly engaged and saved me a lot of time, and they embedded it in their practice over a quarter of a year basically.
I think that's something I'd really like here, is to see what that metric looks like, but we don't have any previous data of, okay, well, how long was it taking people to respond to this question? How long was it taking people to hear back from somebody? And then compare it to now that we have some processes coming in to try and streamline that. That would have been some really good data. I might actually speak to the data team about that. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you can use that learning, can't you? So for the next one, because it's something which we are, in our projects now is like, how do we measure and saying to them in the project, right, well, first of all, we've got to put it in a position where we can measure what it's currently looking like, so then we can then implement what it is we're going to do and see if it's made any difference. And and sort of designing your projects and your solutions so you can do that. It's really interesting, but it's great. From at least then they can then show to the senior management team what difference it's made, and also for us, we can use marketing to be able to go look at what we did. So that's good too.
Yeah. Is that old adage, isn't it, that computers show up everywhere except in productivity figures? So it's really hard to demonstrate how IT's made a process more efficient, even if we intrinsically know it has.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Cool. So what about Copilot then, Melissa? I'm going to leave that hanging there.
Our Copilot, or
are you using it? Are people responding to it? Is there a strategy? What's the charity's position on that?
So interestingly enough, I did actually take this to my manager, Rick, who's in charge of the IT team, the whole, because I just went to a really fantastic conference and went to all the AI talks in January. And it was mostly around sort of ethical AI adoption and, why are you using it? Because I think there's this big thing of like AI and Copilot's the new thing and everyone wants to use it.
Yeah.
But not necessarily everybody actually has a use case for it. It's sort of just like a client approaches you and goes, I want AI. And you go, okay, what do you want AI for? And they just go, I want the AI. I want the Copilot.
Yeah.
I have actually had that conversation, not with the charity.
I want magic. I want AI
yes.
magic sprinkled all over my business.
Yes, I want to make it better because Copilot's better. And we've actually had conversations that we are going to do some research and some training on AI in general. And because again, I work with a lot of people who aren't as I'm trying to find the right words. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a very long day. So working with people who don't use tech in their day-to-day lives, like I said, either they're retired or they work in completely different fields and they're just not. Again, not to say clued up on tech because they're very smart people and they know lots of things, but they just don't use tech in their day-to-day. So kind of not demystifying it, but sort of just giving a really simple introduction of this is what, you know, AI does and this is how we can use it and this is how we can use it responsibly and, you know, all this good stuff. So we are planning on having some sort of knowledge sharing sessions with the wider organization. We do have these monthly calls called monthly catch-up, and I think we are planning to have one of them as a how can AI help CFK?
SharePoint agent is probably the answer, isn't
Yeah,
it? If you're
SharePoint
already in the
agents,
SharePoint
meeting
infrastructure.
transcripts, stuff like that. Yeah, the simpler side.
Melissa, if you ever want help with demos on that, we do that stuff all the time. Happy to.
Please and thank you.
Yeah. What about you know? Does the charity sort of have to raise like apply for funding and bids and sort of, you know, and apply for funding with the government and things like that to keep it going? Is that something which they have to do? Because that's where AI can be very good at that, and it takes a lot of time to do it. So yeah, could be a good use.
Yeah,
that would definitely be a use case I'd like to explore. 100%. That's actually a really, really good idea.
Yeah, the fundraising stuff, which works on Power Platform, is worth having a look at as well, because the license footprint's quite small. It used to the early version used to require full customer service license, which sales license, which is quite expensive. But the newest version is just a premium license, so it's quite cheap. So you could improve your fundraising or how you track rattling the tin with donors.
Was this what you were showing me at the meeting the other week?
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
it is.
I've still not looked at it. I'm so sorry, but yes, that is on my docket to take to my boss.
You have permission to hassle me about it, so if you want,
I probably will. Don't worry, Dylan.
Okay, well, feel free to reach out, and I could do a demo to your boss if you wanted to, because I've got an instance set up. So
yeah,
can I sit in on that? Because I also need to apply for grants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good enough system, and it's, you know, cheap to run. Essentially, it's going to be free to run.
That's like a user group session, that, Dylan.
Yeah, I guess it is. So I'll tell you what, I've got there's a potential customer I'm working on that's much bigger in the non-profit sector. If I win that, I will definitely come and do a session on that stuff, because I based some of the demo on that. So I'd feel like I was repaying my debt to society and for the people who wrote the original tools.
Good. Sounds good. All right. Shall I stop the transcript? Stop the recording, so we capture that. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was really awesome.
Yeah.
Really good.
Inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.